Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Like Attracts Like podcast. If you're joining us for the first time, thank you so much for coming. If you are someone who's been listening to the show, thank you so much for coming back. Today we're going to talk about one of the things that apply all of the different topics that we've been discussing on the show, and that is momentum. How knowing where you are vibrationally in the momentum process can dramatically affect how you view your day and how you continue to create positive momentum in your life. So stick around, we're coming right back.
Take a look at life from a different perspective. What if life is happening for you and not to you? This is the Like Attracts Like podcast with your host, Pat Mahan.
So what do you think of when you hear the word momentum? What does it mean to you? What do you see in your mind's eye when you think about what momentum means in your life? When you think about it, do you view it as a full scope of from the first memory you can recall to where you are now and then the progression of your life and what trajectory it seems to be on? Or do you look at it from a current standpoint as in this moment? What type of momentum do you have to make choices and decisions in your life for the better or for the worse? Or do you have a particular label or identification to the word momentum when you think about it as it relates to you? Do you have a past story or a tape that when you say, what momentum am I carrying in my life, that you immediately recall the negative instances and the negative momentum that's built and then identify that as the scope of how your life has gone? Or do you also have a similar view in the positive sense where when you think of momentum in your life, you go back through your story and your tapes in your mind and pick out all of the good things that have happened to you, and then you view your life as overall being in a positive state of momentum? The reason I like to get really specific about this topic is because it was one of the last parts of the process for me in putting things together to start making all of the processes work. And it puts into perspective how to go very general on not just your past story of yourself, but also how your awareness perceives new moments, and then how to use that new perception to create new momentum or positive momentum in your life, or how to get a better grasp on allowing negative emotions or thought processes to be there without dragging you into that state in the moment. So in this episode, I'm excited to get into what I think momentum is and means, and how to view it and perceive it in your current now moment. So I guess the first way to start looking at this and momentum and maybe how it has worked in your life and then how to use it is to realize how it's created. And initially in our lives, as we talked about before on this channel, it's created unconsciously. We go about our life believing that we are identified with and created by a series of events that we experience in our life, people we come into contact with. We accept beliefs based on other people's beliefs. We accept fears from other people's fears, and we make decisions in our life based on a paradigm that we believe we need to make these decisions for in order to fit in. But what happens is some of these decisions work in our favor and align with our higher self, and then some of them don't. And we know that, we feel that, and we still, for our own codependent reasons or our need to fit in or our belief that we are not enough initially and that we need something outside of us, we get involved in all these scenarios that create a whirlwind of positive and negative momentum in our life. Now imagine as you go through your life unconsciously that above your head and all around you is the vibrational result, and we'll call it the constant field of energy around you that has been created by you unconsciously as you've existed up to this point. You don't really have to go too far down the rabbit hole to make logical assumptions that we seem to mirror in our life the things that we feel we are and the things that we believe in the world. We tend to find a mirrored experience in our reality as we go through because we have told ourselves and trained our mind that these are the things that we are looking to see. Our body and brain and mind retain the energy of those experiences and then broadcast that into the ether. That is what you get back into your awareness. So it's easy to see that you are an accumulation of all of this energy walking around on a daily basis, attracting the equivalent of this energy back to you. This momentum field of energy is responsible for your good and bad experiences. That field is essentially how you communicate with the world around you. And we perceive that communication as our own thoughts and feelings and beliefs. I believe personally that, although the first part of this creation process and building and experiencing the momentum in our life is in an unconscious state of the world happening to us, I believe that it all exists in order for us to realize that these things happened for us, and it was our perception or our ability to accept the lesson or experience at the time that created that contrast of momentum in our lives. And that's why I believe that to some degree, if you remain in an unconscious state as far as how you are creating your life, then it will take a buildup of negative momentum in that direction to create what you would call a catastrophe in your life, or something that is completely against everything that you are saying consciously that you want, but the negative momentum that you've created in your life, maybe not following through on dreams or ideas or love that you are so sure that would benefit you. We fight those urges, and that creates a negative momentum. Making decisions from the wrong standpoint and not with your heart and with your soul will create this contrast and this shift, create an intense amount of potential negative energy and momentum in your life, and then the situations will manifest themselves in that way until we wake up to the fact that we have control over this, that we have control over the things that we believe. We have control over the perceptions that we have and the momentum that we carry. Once we awaken to this fact, it is liberating and exciting, as well as absolutely terrifying, because you realize that although this is the greatest day of your life because you've been able to identify the fact that you can work with you to create the life that you want to live, and you don't technically need anyone outside of you. You don't need anyone's approval. You don't need anyone's respect initially. You don't codependently need these things to cause this volatile momentum in your life. You could create the relationship with you first based on the things that you want, project that, and then you will create positive momentum in the direction that you want to go. So that's what I believe this whole awakening process is. Going from a state of unconsciousness to a state of conscious awareness, and then applying the proper perspective on things that were maybe challenging in the past or led to lessons that we didn't get, so you can break those loops so that you can continue to carry the positive momentum in that direction. I really think that's how this works. It's definitely how it's worked in my life, and I've yet to see an example where that isn't the case. It makes it very easy to, at least in the moment, analyze what's happening in your life so that you can use the one thing that you have in your favor, which is to know that your goal is to find the positive perspective so you can live more positive momentum and experience in your life. Trust me, even as I say these things, I understand how it could be received by somebody who's in a negative state watching this, or somebody who is working on the process of going from a state of unawareness to a state of awareness and realizing certain things. To put all my cards on the table and tell you that this isn't just a show from books and things that I've read and new beliefs that I've had or shows that I've watched. This is something that I've gone through personally, and that's why I wanted to share and reach out to other people and learn to create a community around deliberately creating your life. Because I'll tell you, the day that I realized this, that all these little signs and symbols and synchronicities, all these things that kind of were slowly waking me up to the fact that the way that I was doing things was based on something that I wasn't really aligned with, and I didn't agree with, and I didn't understand growing up. And it created this version of me and this momentum that was just, there's no rectifying it. You can't rectify certain things that we experience in life because we're not supposed to. It's supposed to lead to this pivotal point where we have to be put into a wall in a corner where we need to decide, is the momentum that we're building something that we have more control over, and is it the direction that we want to go? And I basically had a nervous breakdown the day that I realized that I couldn't blame my identity, my story, my past, everything, and the situation that I continued to always find myself in. I had to realize I had enough logical input of how this worked and has worked since the beginning of conscious time. I couldn't use those excuses anymore. I realized that I was creating my life. I realized that I was making decisions from a place of not aligning with my best self, higher self, from limiting beliefs, from a state of confusion and not understanding and fear. I understood that I was making decisions from that way, and it was creating a life that was so self-destructive, I can't even put it into words. And I'm sure that this relates to at least some of you out there that may be or in the same situation or has gone through something similar. It was terrible. I had to take responsibility for things I wasn't prepared for, and that was the beginning of my process to get to a state where I could perceive things in a different way and find a different perception in a current moment and be more present now and not need to be in some future moment that wasn't happening, that wasn't going to give me any more satisfaction than the moment that I was in. Because wherever you go, there you are. You need to take yourself with you. So it's not necessarily a change of scenery. It's not necessarily forcing an issue and forcing a difference in your life to make a change, although it might work for a while. All you're doing is temporarily breaking a current momentum and a cycle and process in your life with the potentiality of a new change in a new world, but you're bringing your old belief systems with you that will surely apply the old negative momentum and recreate those negative scenarios in your life, which is why it's so important to really be honest with yourself and where you are making your decisions from and what people and influences you are allowing into your life so that you can progressively identify more with yourself. And the less you need input from others in the outside world to be okay, then the more you feel confident aligning with yourself and your true message and purpose, and you define that. That's when you can begin to shift that momentum that you created in your life unconsciously to a more positive state and live a better moment now. There's less clutter. There's less of a voice in your head that's trying to get in and poke at you and bring you down and make fun of you and challenge your dreams. Like, that voice begins to go away because you realize that voice only existed to tear you down to a point where you needed to make a decision. You needed to experience the contrast in your life so you could go through that hellish time so that you would know what the good times were. And yes, it is an ongoing process. It's a process that you don't learn this, figure it out, and then all of a sudden your life is phenomenally better. Although, yes, I believe it does get better because a lot of the old patterns break, but it's still something that you need to work on and flow with and be aware of in every moment, because you could very easily recreate the same old negative momentum by realigning with old belief systems. You have to be so careful that you continue to keep the faith of how this works, that the world and universe works very perfectly, and it has without our awareness for a very long time. We developed an awareness of the universe, and all of a sudden everything is out of control and not working because we believe it needs to be a certain way. But that's not the case. It's always working exactly the way it's supposed to be. It's up to us to align to it. We align to it by identifying the momentum in our life and then creating consciously the momentum that we want in every moment. It's in every moment. So the reason a lot of the times this doesn't work for people, or that it starts to work, they try something new and it begins to work and build momentum, and things begin to get better and they'll be excited and happy, and this is going really, really well. I've been doing this for X amount of time and I'm noticing an improvement. This is the beginning of the conversation for the people that fall back into the ruts, including myself. What ends up happening is you have to understand that you've created a new balance of momentum in your life in a positive direction, and it's starting to show itself to you. You might see signs, you might see numbers lining up, you might see synchronicities all over the place. Things that were maybe difficult for you are starting to flow a little bit more smoothly, and you're beginning to adopt a more positive mindset. But you will still be presented with this vortex of positive and negative momentum that you have built. You may need to still, in a present moment, deal with something from a past negative situation that hasn't been cycled through yet. You have to understand and be able to separate this in your mind as you go through it so that you don't get dragged down into thinking that it doesn't work if you come into contact with enough older negative momentum. It's not a pattern repeating, it's allowing you to heal it and move on from it so that pattern doesn't repeat itself. And that is how you maintain positive momentum in your life. So the reason that this episode is so important to me is because I know that it's possible for you to do a lot of the things that we talk about and create this positive momentum, and then through the process initially see signs from your past self and begin to think that it doesn't work. But it is working. That's why I want us to stay present in the moment when we're facing something that doesn't seem to be going the way that we want, and then just make a conscious choice in that moment as you're viewing it to decide what momentum you want to take from it. And then what perspective you would need to get that momentum to work in your life so you don't go backwards. So only speak what you want into existence in any scenario, even if it's difficult, even if you can't do it initially, write down and speak what it would be for you to make a decision in a positive direction with your current situation. And that's actually going to be a perfect lead into the last part of this episode, which is also equally as important to the theme of the entire show, is momentum blockers, I call it. Momentum blockers are essentially anything that you think or say to yourself regarding a situation or a belief that applies the negative side of what you would want in the scenario to the scenario you're in, but it bases it on ridiculousness. It bases it on absolutely nothing, no frame of reference, or it blames it on a past experience from a prior version of you that you are not that version anymore. So you don't know what the capacity of this version of you is. You don't know what the potential of this version is. You don't know what life or reality or peace lies beyond the labels and the verbiage that we use in our heads to define our limitations. So what I would ask you to do for this week is to try to challenge yourself to, in the moment, as you're saying some things that you already know you say that align with things that you know aren't for your best version or for things that you want, try to identify them and write them down and notice how ridiculous they are. So if someone suggests something that you have never done before but you've always wanted to try, listen to the voice in your head, try to limit you from doing this, and by saying things like, oh, I could never do that, or that's not something that I do, or I would never try something like that, or I wish I could do something. Listen to that voice of limitation and then ask yourself where it comes from. Don't accept it as being correct or real. It's not. It's based on something that doesn't really exist in this moment. If it's not there protecting you from physical harm, then challenge it and try to see what's on the other side of you saying that. That belief is not you. You can transcend and overcome whatever limitation you're telling yourself. So definitely listen in your conversations daily or in your inner dialogue and the voices in your head. Listen to anything that starts off with an I can't, or that's not me, or I'll never be able to, or anything that has a limiting initial emotion to the thing that you either want to do or try or an idea that you want to create. Then use this information that we have and that we're learning and acquiring to understand that you can not only transcend those initial limitations, but you can also go back if you feel inspired enough and try to find out where they were created. What gave you that belief system in the first place? Who was it? Where was it? What situation? What were you protecting? What were you hiding from? What was it that you were resisting in that moment in a previous version of you that led to this current state of lack and disbelief and limitation? Overcome that from a place of inner inspiration and personal alignment instead of whatever external scenario made you believe you were anything less than a powerful, deliberate creator. And one of the best ways that I like to do that, there's three things that I do, three questions that I ask all the time. I ask myself in a current moment as I'm viewing whatever situation is presenting itself based on the momentum that I'm carrying or working through, and I ask myself, what momentum am I creating in the moment? I ask myself that all of the time to the point where now that is an unconscious tape. I ask myself, what momentum am I creating in this moment if I'm resisting something or if I'm having thoughts that seem to be resistant to something I know is better for me? I ask myself, what is this situation showing me? What is this thought showing me? What is it telling me about something that I've either asked for, received, but didn't feel like I was worthy of and it created resistance, or something that I was doing for the wrong reasons and it's presenting itself with that exact mirror in my life and I need to try to figure out why. Then the third thing that I like to ask and keep a focus on in a current situation that I'm working through is, what viewpoint would I or someone who's going through something similar have to have in order to create a positive shift in momentum while I'm viewing this unwanted thing in my life? What would I have to do? What would the person that I want to be do in order to shift the momentum that I'm experiencing in a positive direction in a future moment? And I put those three things together and I'm able to either meditate on or work within myself to find the answers to those questions, and then I try to apply it in the situation. And I can tell you that it's had dramatically positive results in my life. People that I talk to and try to work through similar things with, I've seen examples of it in every situation, that anything that they are able to apply those questions to can only have a positive impact on the cluster of positive and negative momentum that we carry with us every day. And through this process and continued dedication and faith to the core of very logical, universal points that make this shift in perspective possible, then you'll start to see the old momentum that created so many negative scenarios in your life dissipate, and you'll transcend that, and the middle ground of the new momentum that you're creating and the old momentum of past experiences will start to turn into more positive, higher vibrational experiences in your life, and that will make it easier for you to keep the ideas and beliefs that are working in your favor going forward. So we're going to do another episode, the next episode probably, on the labels and being more specific with the verbiage and the voice that limits you. So look forward to that. And as always, I want to thank each and every one of you guys for tuning in and listening. This is, again, one of the episodes that helped me the most, and it's something that I use every single day. So hopefully it helped you guys. If you found anything valuable, head on back, re-listen to it, mark down the timestamp, and then shoot me an email, follow us on any social media platforms, and get involved in the conversation because we love talking to each and every one of you and appreciate you all reaching out. So until next time, have an amazing day, a wonderful night. We'll see you then.